Thank you for joining me for today's process video, and today I'm scrapping some photos from a trip to the Ulster Folk and Transport Museum back in 2013, which is in Northern Ireland near Belfast. I'm using the Simple Stories Simple Vintage Weathered Garden, and first of all I'm using a Vicky Boutin stencil to push some bundled sage Distress Oxide through to create a stripe down the centre of the page. And you'll see as I'm doing this, I've turned the stencil round to have it go in the opposite way at the bottom, and I will actually extend this out to the sides by moving the stencil across and adding a couple of extra strips, one on each side. This trip that we made back in 2013, this Ulster Folk and Transport Museum is only a couple of miles down the road from my father-in-law's house, so we had an absolutely wonderful day. The weather was glorious and the kids really enjoyed it, and I took a huge number of photos and I'm slowly working my way through them. We're nearly there now. I think I've got about 3 or 4 layouts left, but I just fancy doing something a little bit different, and it's been a while since I've worked with this weathered garden, so I wanted to pull this out again. I don't have a great deal left now. You'll see I'm just using scraps of paper. I've still got some of the sticker book. The 12 by 12 sticker sheet's almost completely used up, but hopefully I'll have enough to complete what I want to do with it, and then I'll just put it into my scraps bin once I'm nearly through it. So almost done now with this stenciling. As I say, I'm just adding a couple of extra strips down either side, just kind of matching the stencil up. You can see it goes in and out. It makes my eyes go a bit funny actually looking at it now, but I do like the effect. So there, that's it stenciling done. So now I'm just finding one of the bigger pieces of paper that I've got left to map the photos. And this paper works so nicely for these photos. I think I've almost exclusively used this collection for the outdoor photos of this day trip. And it's just 2 4x6 photos. I've not cut them down or anything. They just work really nicely on this page. This was a phase where I was going through having my photos printed at Snapfish in the UK. You get 53 prints a month. You just pay the postage. But I've realised that I do quite often like to fit multiple photos on a page and do them in 3x4 so that I can get more on there without losing too much of the background. So I'm predominantly printing at home now, but I didn't want to waste the photos that I'd had done of this trip, so I'm keeping them at 6x4 or just trimming them down if I'm able to trim them down. And you can see here I wasn't able to completely match that photo of the open fire, but that's fine. It was really just to give a bit of differential between the 2 photos and from the background. So I'm just using one of my small doilies that I've got in my stash here, just to add a little bit of interest to the back of that photo. And now I want to create a strip going right down the centre of the page. I don't have any 12 by 12 or 12-inch wide paper left anymore, so I'm using my usual trick of just cutting a piece that I want to use and then cutting it in half and having the gap behind the photos so you can't tell that it's not a continual piece. So first of all I've used that green part, and then I'm going to come in with a yellowy piece to lay on top of that and doing exactly the same trick. So just cutting it in half and then just popping it behind those photos there. And this is the basis of the layout, so I'm going to start embellishing now. So I've just pulled a few bits out that I wanted to use. I've got a few of the ephemera pieces, mainly the butterflies now, and I've pulled out some JD3DPrint and some Hey Little Magpie Flare, and we'll see where we go. So just sticking these down and committing to the basic base of the layout before I carry on. Just checking that using that stencil made it quite easy actually to line those strips up, because I just put them centrally on the stenciling, if that makes sense. There's a gap between the chevrons of the stencil, so I knew that's where it had to go. And I made sure that I was happy with the placement of the photos, so I didn't want to lift those up again. So just peeling up the edges and adding the glue to get those stuck down. And also that doily there. So just checking that everything's straight and that I've got enough glue on the back before coming in with the other bits and pieces. And yes, using my tea ruler just to make sure. I think, like I say, that stenciling did make my eyes go a bit funny and I thought things weren't straight, but they were. So this is a ticket that I had left, a tag, sorry, that I had left from the ephemera pieces. So I just used what was left on my doorbell of the bundled sage to ink around the edges just to make it stand out a little bit more. Then there was this Live Life Simply piece, also from the ephemera pieces. And then I've got a chevron flare badge from Hey Little Magpie, one of James's JD3DPrint circular wood embellishments, which says cute on it, a little wood button with a star on. These are in Hey Little Magpie doing embellishment kits, and some of these wood buttons appear in there along with the tassels, which I'm just threading on to the wax string here. This wax thread is also in these embellishment kits. It's all the little bits and pieces that I enjoy adding to my layouts, and I thought it might be fun to create some kits to sell in the shop. So I'll link those down below for anybody who might be interested. So just starting to glue all these bits and pieces down now so that I can get the thread going exactly where I want it to go. I'm going to stick it underneath that flare badge, and then I shall use the bit that I cut off to tie through the button so it looks like it's stitched onto the layout, but I will just be sticking that on because I'm feeling very lazy. And you'll see I just threaded the tassel onto that wax thread through the tag there, and that's a nice way of using tassels without actually having to glue them down. So this is a JD3DPrint wood veneer camera. They're new to Hey Little Magpie, and we've got them in the Etsy store as well. So again, I shall link the Etsy store down below, and I'm just having a little play with some other bits and pieces just to add them, get them used up and add them around the layout to add some interest. So this piece just says this time, and I thought that looked quite cute there. And then I wanted to have one of these green leaves from the Autumn Leaves pack from JD3DPrint. The big one just felt a little bit too big in the end, so I went for the oak leaf, which just fits neatly in there. And that green works really nicely with the rest of this collection as well. So here I am just using that offcut of the wax thread to poke through the button. You don't need a needle with this wax thread, it's great because it's relatively stiff. You can just thread it through. And I didn't want to tie a knot on the back because I didn't want the bulk, because I'm going to stick this down just with some PVA. But when I try and pop it down the first time, the threads sort of push back through. So I have to end up looping the ends or threading the ends through the loop on the back of the button. And that just keeps them nicely in place. So just having a bit of a fiddle to do that. And then once that's down, I can pop that down in that nice cluster that we've got going there. Just cutting off the excess, adding a bit more glue, and there it goes down. So just deciding where to position this camera, but it does nestle next to that button and the flare badge in the end. And I find this piece, I think it said love this moment, and I didn't want to have moment on it, so I just cut off the word moment in a minute, you'll see, and use that just above that cute wood veneer piece. So sticking the camera down and that butterfly, and I think it's here that, yeah, I come back to this piece and just cut off the word that I don't want. And that works really nicely just there. Seem to be all fingers and thumbs today. I've dropped a couple of things, luckily glue side up. I find this little heart, so I think that would look nice, just added to that cluster. And then I did consider, I'm bringing a label in that's an Ellie Studio label stamp that I stamped using, what did I use? Iced spruce. And this was just from my collection of stamped labels that I have in a little tub. So adding the roller date stamp there. And then I did consider adding some splatters, and I was going to go in with the bundled sage, watered down. And then I thought about using my gold, which I love and would work really nicely with this collection. But in the end, I decided to come in with my Nouveau Crystal Drops in bottle green. and that works perfectly. So I just find another little butterfly to add at the top there, and you'll see I added a tiny bit of journaling down the left hand side of the bottom photo, and it just says Ulster Folk and Transport, how bread was cooked on an open fire, just to remind us of what the photo was about. But the main photo of Ross and the kids is the house that they've got there, and then when you go inside it shows how life was back then. It's absolutely fascinating. So here I am just coming in with these crystal drops as my splatters, and that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're enjoying watching me. I upload Tuesday, Thursday and Sunday, so I shall see you again on Sunday for another video. Thank you so much. Bye.